Hello, it's been quite a few weeks since I recorded, but I've kind of like reached this place in my process where if I'm not motivated to fix something, I'm not showing up here. So I'm here today with Breyton, and I know most of my audience already knows you because you're radical and I'm radical. And and we'll speak more to that. And I have lots of questions to ask you. But first of all, welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. And usually the way that I kind of start is like by asking like your human design journey. But with you, I just kind of want to know, and I'm really curious a little bit about your childhood, really, because you're a pure individual, quad right, provocative, creative role model, channel of awakening, fixed heretical behavior. Like that's quite a design, right? So I want to know a little bit about your childhood and how was it for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. My childhood was peculiar. It was different. I didn't have the same experience as a lot of African Americans. My dad is from Uganda. He's from East Africa. My mom is from the States, and she's of British descent. She's British American essentially. And so I had I was between, two worlds growing up. Uh, I didn't, yeah, in very many ways, I was of course very accepted by my family, by my mom's family. I mean, immensely accepted by my mom's family. Um, my grandpa actually told my mom to marry my dad when he was here playing football, because his visa was about to expire. So my grandpa, and this is back in the 80s, right? This is when things are a little bit shaky in the US, when it comes to different ethnicities being with each other. My mom's family is fantastic. My dad's family, pretty much everybody is in England or Uganda. So I was pretty much around my mom's family growing up. And I didn't, because I'm African American, I don't have like foundational Black ancestry, so I never fit in with, with that group of people, so to speak. Not until I got older, I was kind of, it was a little bit of an outlier, right? A little bit of an outlier, and so a lot of what I grew up around was my mom's side of the family, and they are, mom's side of the family is very religious, but also, not religious in the sense that everybody's gonna like jump to the conclusion. I mean, my mom's family is immensely accepting and non-judgmental and very loving. So I grew up in that type of environment around those type of people, and I didn't really experience any sort of pushback or any resistance until kindergarten, until I was old enough to go to school. And when I was old enough to go to school, it was right off the bat. um, I was experiencing resistance, and some of it was, some of it I'm sure was, or my auric provocation, and because I can't, why I go anywhere and my aura is provoking people. I mean, projector aura as a whole is penetrative. It's going to go into people, and then when that aura has the channel of emoting in it, channel that provokes the spirit, yeah, people feel it. Whether, no matter what, shade of emotion I'm in. Um, so I think that some of the resistance that I encountered was due to that. But yeah, I mean, I grew up, physical violence was a part of my life from kindergarten, growing up. just going to school, just existing. And it's not to say that that's immensely prevalent where I live and where I grew up. I grew up in Utah, and I've experienced less prejudice in Utah than anywhere else that I've been in the world. Um, that's in the West, at least. That's in the West. Um, but that was very much, a part of life growing up. When I got a little bit older, when I was around when I was a teen, I really started to feel my emotional system. It became very apparent to me that my emotional system was affecting people. I didn't have words for it or know what it was, but I knew that when I wasn't feeling good, people around me didn't feel good. I knew that when I was around people and I felt good, everybody felt great, right? And so I grew up aware of that, and because I was aware of that, I would hide myself away when I wasn't feeling good, when I was melancholic, or when I was in a low. Um, Now it's just when I'm in a low, because I'm melancholic anyways most of the time. But I would definitely, hide myself away, especially as a second line, um, for better or for worse. But it's always been taking responsibility for my emotional system, how powerful it is something that started before human design, definitely. Um, I all throughout school, I always, ran into provocations, resistance. There was always at any time there could always be, I could always get attacked by somebody or something, something could happen, um, which was never an issue. Never an issue. If there's a problem, I solve the problem. But it was, it was still very much, it was still very much a reality. There's not growing up, until this day, there's no such thing as being African American and being safe in America. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Um, and having a very, provocative design, being a pure individual, that is something that can really shake things up, uh, anywhere that I go. Uh, Very rarely does that happen. That would happen in school. Um, now that I'm older, there's not really any very few opportunities, or probabilities for that to happen. Um, so since I've gotten out of school, it hasn't been haven't ran into much. Haven't ran into much. But growing up, it was definitely there. Growing up was not easy. There was I could get into altercation at any time. Just minding my business, being myself.
Yeah.
And then I had to kind of put myself away from my family, and I have very large. I've got like over 30 cousins. I have 7 aunts and uncles. I mean, my family is magnificent. They're beautiful people. And even with them, I still had to hide myself away, depending on where my emotional system was at. So yeah, it was my childhood. It came with having my configuration. It came with its challenges. Even with having the family that I have, knowing, as a pure individual, you know that you don't fit in. Like it doesn't matter how much people love you. It doesn't matter how close you are. If you can be in a group of people and you're still alone. That's just the nature of it. Because if that's not the nature of it, then you're going to get knocked off your feet when you need to stand on your own 2 feet in your truth alone. And so that was always something that I didn't necessarily understand, but I knew existed. That no matter how much people love me, or how close they are to me, I'm still alone, even if I'm with them. So there was definitely a lot that I did know about myself, before design. But that was very much my experience growing up.
Yeah. And did you at any point think like, this is just me and there's something wrong with me? Or did you think that this is normalized?
I thought there was something wrong with me for a long time. I mean, even, I'm all right. And at one point, in school, they thought that I had a reading comprehension problem. And then they found out, and so they put me in like a special program, right? Like I wasn't smart or something like that, right? And they found out in that program that I was in second grade reading at a seventh grade level. I was just reading so fast, through intervision, that I couldn't speak it out at all. So pretty, it was different. It was definitely different. Having being looked at a certain way, um, but not being the whatever the projection is. Yeah, growing up was looking back, and I don't look back very often. Um, my outer authority on that. I don't look back very often, but looking back now, it was definitely not easy. And I didn't think that I always knew that I was different. I always knew that I was different. I always knew that I wasn't like other people. Even at a young age, I knew not to initiate. I knew not to approach other people. Even at a young age, I mean, ever since I can remember. I remember even, my mom's a 4-6 with the channel of initiation, pure generator, and she's fantastic. But with her, I remember, go, go play with your friends, go across. And I remember like going over, knocking on the door with my friends, and it was like abrasive. It was like abrasive to their parents, And so I learned at a young age that, yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to wait for everything to come to me. So there was definitely pieces where I was like, yeah, there's something wrong with me. But then I got a little bit older. And I think when I was around probably like 16, yeah, probably around 16, I still thought that there might be something wrong with me. But by that time, I had been in enough situations that I had at least an idea of how powerful I actually am. And I won't be humble about it. I have a very powerful emotional system. I can change an entire environment. And it's not, people get, it can be very enjoyable, or it can be very, very unpleasant. And I understood that at, probably around 16. And then from there on, it was just, I just saw it as power. It was just my power, my strength that was inherent in me, regardless of if there was something wrong with me. So there was a duality to it.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't know if it's like being receptive or like the combination of being receptive and a 2-4. Because for me, even same, like I'm 3 parts right, projector, mental projector. So growing up, like I was not initiating a lot anyway either. Like it didn't feel right. There was something in me that was very receptive to how it was received when I initiated or when I try to move things. And it was like I was very quickly like, no, this actually doesn't work for me. And I think it's actually really something that needs to be talked about more, like just receptivity in general, because I don't think people understand just how much we pick up and just how much we absorb and just how much we read in between the lines. Because it's like, I don't need someone to really give me words for me to understand what's happening here. In fact, even when someone is talking, it's not really the words that I'm listening to, it's something way beyond that. And someone who's receptive and someone who's like a 2-4 on top of that. So like, there's just this naturalness, and you understand very early on that like, oh, this is very natural, and so I'm going to keep doing this, and this isn't, so I'm not going to do this. And so I felt like growing up, like, yeah, there was definitely something wrong with me in the sense that I thought I was not as smart. That was the thing. Like whereas sometimes I was super smart, but sometimes I was just like, yeah, there's something wrong with me. I can't remember shit. I can't recall shit. Like there's, like somebody asked me about like a song lyric or something, and I'm like completely blanking out, or like I'm in an exam and I'm looking at the question paper and it's like, yeah, I don't know what to say to this, but if you were to ask me in a conversation, I can talk about it for a really, really long time. And so there was this duality to me too, where I was like, such a natural, like I am so good at understanding people and reading the situation, but I don't quite fit in. And it doesn't quite make sense the way that my system works. So I'm wondering, like, what do you see with your probability view in terms of development of receptivity within us, Homo sapiens and transitors, specifically? And then I know that raves are a completely different species and that works completely differently. But I want to know, like, what do you see in terms of, because you also need motivation and you're very actively like educating people on receptivity. So what do you
Yeah,
see?
I mean, I pioneered rightness until I started my career. There was no talk about rightness really anywhere that I saw on any platform, or even in professional school. There was no actual, there was no actual awareness that was brought up of it, and I know that I pioneered rightness, and I've said that around direct students of Raw, and they know that. And that was really where I received my call. So that's going to, that work is going to continue, and really the the fact of the matter is that even the first generation students that were right, it was not probable for them to ever reach a place of rightness that I am at, or that you're at, or that our generation of of right beings are at, because they were older when they came into design and condition. And for me, I was out of institutional school at 16. So I've had maybe 11 years of strategic conditioning, right? Maybe 11 years of actual, institutional strategic conditioning. And so where I'm at is very deep in my rightness, and I'm so deep in my rightness that it just continues to become more and more clear to me what's going to be necessary in the future. Raw Raw's intention was to split education so that there's right education and left education. That was his intention, when it came to just design education as well. I think that that's very much something that needs to happen. And you've learned from me. You know that I do a fully receptive delivery, um, and I think that that's something that needs to carry on, and that those that have configurations for education need to carry out. That's something that people that are fifth, fourth color, third color, that have configurations for either fixing the education, or the developmental motivations, or views. I think that's very important. And I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in spreading awareness, even though I've done a lot. I've done a lot to spread awareness. I've given lectures on it. Um, there's content out there that's public, lectures that I've given on rightness. Of course, I teach. I have a receptive immersion at and receptivity is definitely something that needs to be addressed, but it's not as extreme as rightness. And receptivity, half the population has a receptive mind. Rightness, 25% of the population has, is rightness. So, passive brain, receptive mind. And that's really where we're going into architecture it's not human. And, me, I'm not a rave, but I have the same architecture as a rave. I'm just in a different vehicle. And, I don't have any way of aligning with the strategic world, with the world, other than, strategy and authority. But it's, when it comes to the right being has to enter into this process so much more radically than anybody else. Raw would tell strategic students, he'd say, "Oh yeah, start your PHS after your first 7-year cycle." So I mean, I have clients that are left and they start theirs like a year, two in, and it messes up their bodies. But if you're right, for the most part, you can hop right into it, and you need to hop right into it because your body needs to decondition from the strategic world and everything that's homogenized us. And so it's a very different process, and there are people out there, and people in the professional community, and not a lot, but there are those out there that are doing things wrong, period. I mean, if you're working with somebody that's right, you have to work with them in a way that is right. And if you don't know how to work with them in a way that is right, then you shouldn't be working with them, and you need to go back to school again. And that's something that needs to stop, because that is something that I'm running into, that I'm seeing, where I'm having to, somebody works with somebody that's a professional that has been in design for quite a while, over 7 years, and I have to go back and correct, right? I see through probability what needs to be fixed, and I know what's necessary. I have to go back and correct that, go back and give them the conditioning that's necessary in order for them to actually live out what they're here to live out. So there's definitely a large piece of awareness that needs to continue to spread. It has been spreading, and it is, but it is definitely going to take more than just me in order for that to happen. I can, as a pure individual, you can bring the mutation. I can bring the mutation. I can infect everybody. I can do that. But to do everything alone, it just won't work. I mean, look at Ra. Yes, he brought mutation. He brought shock, but he needed people. You still need, in this process, you can't do anything alone as a pure individual. The most that you can do as a pure individual, on your own, is stand on your own 2 feet and resist anything that comes at you. But to actually bring the mutation and change, you need forces to help you. And so I'm going to continue to answer my call, because that is where I received my call, was in rightness, in the need to protect rightness and the need to develop it. And that was where I received my call. I'm going to continue that, but I definitely, I'm going to need more, um, more others, specifically projectors, because it's going to be up to projectors in the next cycle. Even to learn human design in the next cycle, you're going to have to learn it from a receptive projector, more specifically, probably a right projector, because in around 50, 50 to 60 years, there's not going to be a way for you to pull up a book. There's not going to be a way for you to pull up the internet, and so very much we need projectors that carry rightness to be, to feel accepted, in what they are, and to trust in what they are, so that they can carry out what they're here to do, and they are here to carry the knowledge. Now, everything else, of course, they've got their own purpose and they've got their own authority, but a projector that's in design that carries rightness is here to carry the knowledge. Doesn't mean that they're here to necessarily work in design, but they're here to carry the knowledge for the species.
Yeah. And I have noticed from my own process, and just by the projectors, the right projectors, and that I'm surrounded by, like, stuff moves fast. Like, the process moves really, really fast. And tell me if you've seen this too. I've seen it in myself. Like, and I'm indirect. I was living nocturnally since a very, very long time, way before design. I wasn't eating breakfast since I was really young. And so I was naturally doing this. But once I came into design and I started following my strategy and authority, and it happened like that, it was very, like, the only way for me to do it was to be radical about it, because I don't really, like, maybe it's just a me thing, but like, I don't really do things half-assed, like anything, like either I'm in it or I'm not, like if I'm saying, yeah, if I'm in the experiment, I'm in the experiment. And, like, the experiment has certain things, like you gotta be in your strategy and authority. You gotta sleep alone. You're conditioned. Like, I really just don't even understand why people make a big deal about these things, because like if you're wanting to be in the experiment, like this is what the experiment is about. Like once you get into it and you actually start applying it, then see for yourself, but apply first. Like give yourself that time. Do sleep alone. Like that's important. Like people don't even realize just how not self we are, right? Like just how deep it goes. And I didn't realize it till I started studying rave psychology. And then I was like, wait a minute, like we are conditioned as fuck. And
Oh
if
yeah.
you think that if you're just going to just do a little bit here and a little bit there and learn a little bit and just, like follow your strategy every now and then and maybe have a relationship with your authority, like, come on, you're not going to decondition. You're just not
Nope.
going to. And so if I come on and I say these things and then people like, whoa, like that's so limiting and like that's so that takes away from the experiment itself. No, it doesn't. The whole
Um,
point of being in the experiment is to be in your strategy and authority and to do everything that you can to decondition so that you can see if this is real, so you can see, better. Just
mhm.
And to me this is just basic stuff, like,
It is basic. I mean, it's source material. That's the thing, is like, I say a lot of things that are provocative, and they're provocative because I am provocative, but also they're source material. It's also source material. On the topic of moving fast, uh, quite recently, um, there was, a disagreement among me and some other people in the professional community, that people who are right, we decondition faster. Now, what was funny about the disagreement is that it's actually source material. It's in PHS that the right being has a predisposition to surrender, which means the vehicle has a predisposition to surrender. And the vehicle has a predisposition to surrender, the deconditioning process happens faster. This doesn't mean that the biological process of deconditioning happens faster, but overall operating correctly, operating in your authority, seeing things correctly, all of that does happen faster. It happens much faster. And then, of course, as much as I love the strategic people in my life, uh, just the way that they're oriented is to see that as a threat, right? That it's something that is, that could overcome, and that's just the natural reaction. And that is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting that even things that are source material, even people that are educated, that are knowledgeable in design, if there's something that contradicts the way that they see the world, um, even if it is source material, there can be some resistance to it, which, I mean, you don't get that very much with people that carry a lot of rightness, because we absorb a lot. I'm quad right. I absorb source frequency whole, the exact frequency. That's what I do. That's my purpose. So it's very clear to me that is that's a reality. That is a reality, that we do. People that carry rightness do go faster. Even people that are receptive do go faster, just because of that capacity to receive. Um, they go faster as far as integrating the knowledge. But if you're right, the vehicle is predisposed. It's predisposed, because as soon as you get into the quadrant where there's a passive brain and a receptive mind, you're in the quadrant that is right before the next mutation. That's right before the rave. And so, being in that quadrant, what does the rave do? The rave surrenders to something greater, surrenders to greater consciousness. And so the evolutionary movement is for our bodies to do that. In fact, Ra said that we were just pretending to be human. That we're not even really a human, that we're pretending to be human. It's like, and you could hear that and get quite offended if you're right. But that's the reality of it. Once you're that deep into the knowledge of design, you read that and you're like, yeah, no, that's true. And a lot of us never really felt like we were anything but very alien anyways. And there is not a way, especially, I mean, I think if you're right, you have to surrender, and I think that it is from what I've seen, the clients that I work with that carry rightness, which is a lot, hundreds, they we're a lot less resistant to entering into being radical. And I think it's just a predisposition. It's not better or worse or anything like that. It's just the predisposition that the vehicle has. And there's no way, there's no cheat codes. There's no codes in human design. There's no cheat codes in human design. We have to go along a process, and the process is definitely, it's unique to everybody, but there are parts of human design. Human design is the knowledge is binary. The knowledge is an absolute. And if people kind of accept that, they can't accept that. But human design is an absolute. Doesn't mean that it's an absolute in the sense that it means more than everything to you in your life. No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that there's no changing it. There's no modifying it. There's no, it is what it is. And it also means that it is binary. So any idea of being in the middle or neutral on anything in life is a lie. It doesn't exist. There's not a way to be. We are binary. That's like saying I was somewhere in between my transference and my motivation. No, there's no way to be neutral on any topic or anything in life. There's no way to stay out of anything aside from being the not self. You're either one thing or you're not. And as a projector, that you're either a projector or you're not. There's no way to be a projector and dabble. If you dabble, you're still a generator. We're still trying to be a manifester. You're not a projector. And that's source material. That's not even, I'm provoking. But I heard that through raw shock, and that frequency is in me. And that's just the fact of the matter. And, we can't, we all have our not self. I have my not self that I deal with all the time. I've had a fourth color motivation. Nothing transfers more than fourth color motivation, but I can also get out of it really quick. I've got my not self that I have to deal with. I got the not self hooks that I deal with. But regardless of dealing with those not self hooks, I know there's no dabbling. You either are or you aren't. We're always gonna deal with the not self hooks. We weren't born and raised to be projectors from the time that we were little. Those children would be a different story when we see that start to happen quite a bit. But for us, that those hooks are always going to be there to some extent. The mind loses power over our decision making process. My mind does not make decisions anymore. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't make any decisions anymore. I could say that it doesn't. My authority makes all my actual decisions. I mean, other than going to the gas station and buying a fucking candy bar or something, but it makes my decisions. And it's very apparent to me that there is not a way for anybody, and the strategic being, the amount of discipline the strategic being needs, because they are not predisposed to surrender, is immensely intense. I mean, I see it every day, on a very close level. With Sam, who is completely, she's strategic. As people that are quad left, they're nine-centered beings, so they're fundamentally receptive. But that strategic architecture is very intense and very, it's more difficult to deal with as a strategic being than any of the other strategic variables, really, because it's so extreme. And so the discipline and the all in that has to be there is there. It's not it's nobody can dabble at the end of the day. Nobody can. But watching the nine-centered Homo sapien intransitus that does not have that predisposition to surrender, the amount of discipline that they need, because they still have a way of aligning with the strategic world. And there's a lot of mind stuff. There's a lot of mental, we're still a lot of our personality crystals. We're still carrying a lot of seven-centered conditioning, a lot of that genetic material. And so the discipline has to be there for everybody, but for the projector, it's just a non-negotiable. Either you can be a generator, try to be a manifester, or you can be a projector, but you can't go in between. You can't. I would even go to say that if you're a projector, you want to be a projector, you go into your process. You don't experiment. You go into your process. There's not, you can't experiment because either you're a projector or you're not. So if you're dabbling, you're still a generator. I mean, I can't speak for the other types, but you either enter into your process as a projector or you don't. And I think that we use the term experiment because that was Ra's 5-1 seduction. Oh, just enter into the experiment. It's just an experiment. Yeah, that's Ra's seduction, that it's just an experiment. Because when you're actually in this, if you are somebody along the fractal line that is going to differentiate, only 4% of the 4% are going to, that are going to actually transform. And if you are one of those beings, you're not going to be experimenting for long. You're not going, and so it's good. It's good fifth line seduction on bringing people in to experiment. But the fact of the matter is, it's a process.
Yeah. And it's really ridiculous to me that people find this offensive, because from your perspective, like, it's so obvious. And from my understanding, from my channel of acceptance, like, I have just come, the more that I'm in it, the more that I see, the more that I come to accept, like, it's just logical. Like, you cannot dabble. Like, there is no way for you to be a passenger in this life if you are dabbling. Like, sure, like, I know that some people that are not here to fully differentiate are, just going to get some little benefit, like less resistance from following their design. And that's fine. Like, I'm not against that. Good for you. But if you're, on the ride with me, then, that's not what my ride is about. Like, I'm going to differentiate. I know that. I want to be a passenger, and I want to have people around me that are surrendered fully. And that's kind of the movie that I want to watch. And I know that somewhere deep within myself that's very much within my reach. And, like, the deeper I go into my studies, the more comfortable I become with myself and my process. And yeah, I can say too that, like, I make very few decisions with my mind now. It's there, it's loud, it's always talking, but I can be like, oh, I'm distracted. And I can always catch myself at distraction. Like, before I even get to transference, like, I'm always catching myself like, I'm getting distracted. So, I noticed that. And even just noticing that has helped me move so much faster in my process. And, like you said, like, once the seduction is there and you're in it, like, once you taste it, and especially for projectors, like, once you see the Maya, once you see through people, there's no going back. How many times in my process I've been like, fuck this, like, I like, just want to get rid of this. I don't want to see this no more. I want to get out of it. And I just can't stop, because you can't, like, once you see things, you can't unsee them.
I mean, you saw, gosh, how many? There was like 11 other projectors when you were in projector immersion. You saw their faces when they got cracked on on recognition, the invitation, how that works, and it's like, and just their faces, where it's like it's almost like that. There's a little bit of, oh fuck, this is it. When they realize how many people that actually don't care about them, how many people are using them, how much, the stuff that they see is actually there, and it's like, whoa, and you can't take that back. And once you get to a certain level, where you can watch your color configuration, you can watch your distraction, and that's where, if you can catch your distraction, you can prevent transference most of the time. If you can catch your distraction, that's a crucial thing for every projector to know. If you can do that, then you can continue to keep seeing, and you can continue to stay at the right frequency, and you can continue to receive those invitations, because the invitations is not really going to come when you're in transference, not really going to come when you're distracted, and you can't guide or provide outer authority when you're in those states either. It's fascinating how much more a projector needs to know than everybody else. it doesn't matter what field we we work in or guide in on the material plane. You have to know human design to be a projector. That's just the fact of the matter. You do. It's part of being a projector, no matter what you do. And there's very few of us, very few projectors that that have the curse of the geometry to work in design. There's very few of us. It's not for everybody, but for those of us that do, we're gonna be in it indefinitely. I think. I think that would be accurate for any projector that is actually in design, working in design. The rest of us, just need to know the knowledge for navigating the Maya correctly, for seeing correctly, for guiding correctly, for engaging with the world in a way that's correct for us, and being in our own authority. We've got we have all the conditioning that's coming in from the neutrino state, conditioning that's coming in from the people that we're around. That can take you out of your authority very, very quickly. You have to know how to deal with that. You have to know how to deal with getting sucked into a penta, getting stuck in a wall. You have to know how to deal with these things. And until, as a projector, you know how to deal with those things, it's difficult. And it's not to say that a projector can't guide until they know how to deal with those things. That's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the amount of awareness that you have when you know how to deal with those things. That's usually when a projector is like, "Oh fuck, I'm a projector," right? It's like, I am that now. Instead of it being so much, because there's so much of a mental trip of aspiring to be something or some personal development. No, we're going back to factory settings. That's what we're doing. We're going back to factory settings of how we're designed to operate. And I think that we can go back and forth in those thought processes of I'm developing myself, and also the factory settings. I think that goes back and forth throughout very much our awareness. But once you get to that point, once you get to the point where you are aware of things that you were not aware of before, outside of just what you see, but what you feel, oracally what's there, it becomes, I think it can become very apparent that, okay, this is factory settings. This is what I am.
Yeah, yeah. And once you taste that, there's really no going back. I mean, there really isn't, because what design has brought into my life in just 2 years, a little over 2 years, is just incredible. Like, I sleep like myself. I wake up with like the conditioning, but still like myself, like I know very clearly like what's me, how I should operate, like what feels good, what doesn't feel good, when should I engage, timing, like, because that's what human design is all about. Like, really, it's about being at the right place at the right time. That's what strategy and authority does. That's what it gets you. It brings you up to a place of no resistance, where you're just kind of moving through the Maya and again, like Ra says, like, projectors are here to slide. And I have personally am experiencing more and more of what he really meant by that, because when you are yourself,
you've been sliding.
Yeah.
You've been sliding. I can tell. Yeah.
And it's easy, and again, it's fun. Like, being a projector is fun. I mean, like, when you're not a projector, it sucks. It sucks so much.
Yeah.
But when you're a projector, it's fun. You on the daily get to see so much more than everyone around you. That by itself, even if nobody asks you, that by itself is incredible what you can see. And then, because you see, people will ask you. They ask you. And the less you tell them, the more they will ask you. And as a 2-4, I think that's something that I'm coming to realize now. It's like, I don't have to be available for you. I'm just, I'm reaching that place of like, you don't like me, fuck off, and if you want me, then you gotta really call me out. I'm not just gonna come out, just like that. I enjoy my life. Like, I am a 2-4. My life is fun. From morning to evening, I do something that I enjoy doing it. I'm just living my best life. So if you want me to come out of my hermit top, then it better be a good invitation and there better be good recognition. And if that's not happening, like, that's fine, you know. I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much a 2-4. That's what it is, though. You know, living your profile is it's part of being on your cross. That's part of everything. That's part of, you know, differentiation. You know, like you said about, you know, just strategy and authority. It's, you know, it's fantastic if that's all that somebody lives out. You know, it's going to change their life. It's going to change their awareness. They're going to have less resistance. Their life is going to be better just operating through strategy and authority. It is, but full differentiation and fully transforming. That's the only other approach, and that approach is deeply rewarding. And I don't. Yeah, that you can't put a price on. I mean, how are you going to put a price on awareness? How are you going to put a price on being more aware than almost all, you know, all the, you know, there's a very select few, right? You know, if you're 4% of the population, how are you going to put a price on being that, you know, being more aware, and being aware of what's going on, being able to see what nobody else can see, being able to feel what other people don't feel, not being homogenized, you know, in conditioning fields to the point where you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing, and you don't even see or realize that you're doing something that isn't your choice whatsoever. You know, it's a beautiful thing to be in a place where, you know, I travel twice a month. You know, via plane, and to be able to be in crowds, you know, walking through very aura dense environments that, as a pure individual, I don't necessarily like, you know, walking into those type of environments, but being able to sense and feel that this person that I'm next to has a frustrated sacral, and that's charging me up and making me not feel good. And so I just stop and I fall back, you know, or being aware that, oh, well, this person's got a good sacral. This is nice that we're both on the escalator together, right? Being able to be aware of those things makes all of the difference. You know, being able to be aware of not, you know, what we see, what we, you know, sense and take in aurically, and then, you know, the vehicle itself, right? Being at the right frequency, the health that brings to the vehicle. You know, being in our color configurations, the health, literal, you know, physical health that gives us when our personality crystal is at the right frequency. There's just so much about it that, you know, I can't even, you can't quantify the value of it. You know, this truly is it is transformational. It is truly transformational.
Yeah, on a really deep level. And, you know, like, I really do understand the word privilege now, you know, because I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Mm-hmm.
feel it, because if I get to live this kind of a life for however long I'm here, like, heck yes, I lucked out. And I feel that on an everyday. And just imagine that, like, you know, I could not have said this about myself or my life a few years ago, but I can now. And it's such a huge transformation, such a massive change. And for me, it has just been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, granted, the beginning was lonely, difficult,
Oh yeah.
confusing. You know, I'm a mental projector. I have a lot of openness. Like, my not self mind is scary.
Yeah.
It is scary. But, you know, like, once you start really identifying it and noticing it, it's just so obvious now. Like, it's just so obvious. And, you know, you don't get to do shit. Like, you can be loud and you can say whatever you
Yeah,
want,
I know. Yeah.
and it's always on, but like, you just don't get to decide shit. And now that I really feel like empowered in my voice too, it's like the answers are just right there, you know, like, I just know it's right there for me. And that has accelerated things significantly. But what I wanted to ask you a little bit more about is 2027 is pretty close. I feel like my guilt motivation is really turned on suddenly. And I'm just feeling like, yo, we need to fix our shit if we're if if we're really going to be able to see clearly post 2027. And if you found design right now, you're in design right now, like you need to be on it. You need to be radical with your experiment so that you're actually in your authority, so that you can actually be the eye of the storm that is coming. And I can, as a right being, like, and I'm on the cross of penetration, right? So, and I have the 55.6, I can feel under my skin what's coming. Like there are days where under my skin there's like, and I have to like externalize about it with my friends and be like, yo, something is going on and it is coming, and we are not as prepared, or like, I mean, we're as prepared as one can be, but my glass half empty mind is like, yo, we need to fix shit. Like things need to change and things need to move. And so I was wondering, like, what do you see, what do you sense, and what would you like to educate more on?
That's a great question. This is something I've talked about for quite some time periodically. And I just imagine how crazy people probably thought I was early last year when I talked about it compared to now. Um, I it's in my emotional system, I'm a 55/6 color. I can very much feel that coming. And because it is in my emotional system, I more or less, I know the frequency of it. I have the 55th gate and the 6th color in my definition, and also my north node is that imprint as well. And that is the actual trajectory that closes the door. So I am filtering from the actual star that closes the door. I am filtering the neutrino data from that star. And it gets spooky. Last time that I talked about 2027, I talked about it on my podcast, and it was the day I recorded that the day before Russia invaded the Ukraine, that things were falling apart, and things are falling apart, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a it's really interesting that 2027, the cycle change, it can be seen through multiple lenses, but at the end of the day, for us, for Homo sapien and Transitus, we need to differentiate, and we need to differentiate ideally before the cycle changes, which means that in a couple of years, that's like the last bit of coming into design, probably that it's going to be able to take hold most efficiently. And a very large piece of it all for everybody is the material plane. The material plane is not going to function the way that it has functioned ever since we have been human. And whether we were 7-centered or 9-centered, it is going to function according to strategy and authority. We're a very privileged group. I mean, to have this knowledge, to be able to live this out, we are very privileged. And going into a cycle where the material plane functions according to strategy and authority, that tells you that those that are not in strategy and authority, the material plane, resources, the way that they, their quality of life is not going to function well. Which means that not only does does the dedication and discipline to living one's type need to happen for the sake of awareness, it also needs to happen for the sake of livelihood. This is not, and it's coming. It's going to come, and when it does, it's going to be selfishness. I mean, deep selfishness. And I don't say that in a bad sense, but because I carry that imprint, I mean, you carry that imprint as well, because you carry the 55-6, you know that selfish, there is a selfishness that's there. And it's not that selfishness isn't willing to share necessarily. Even mine's in detriment, and it's not that it's not going to, but it's very unlikely, and there's going to be a slim chance that somebody's going to share their resources with you after, the cycle changes. People are on their own. There's not going to be, because we're getting hit with that, and also we're getting hit with the background melancholic frequency, which I carry the whole melancholic frequency, but there's gonna be a background of that. And then there's gonna be 3420. And also this generative, busy move, it's integration, this integration energy that's going to be in everybody. So you put integration, move, busy, I'm busy, I need to do this, I need to do this for me. And you mix that with a material, an obsession for materialism that everybody's going to have. That selfishness, after 2027, people are not going to be handing out soup in the soup lines, probably. The food bank, people aren't going to be showing up to help people at the food bank. You're not going to have these same institutions and organizations that the Cross of Planning has built. It is, it's interesting because human design has always been about, individuation, differentiation. It's about individual autonomy, individual rights, no matter what your circuitry is or your design is. And that's what it's preparing everybody for. For me, I'm a pure individual. I'm moving into what I'm probably going to be most comfortable in, frankly. I mean, it's probably going to be deeply comfortable in it. But it's still going to hit me. That's the thing. Even me filtering the star that closes the door, even me filtering the star that closes the door, even me having 55-6 in life force. I grew up in the Cross of Planning. I was born into the frequency of the Cross of Planning. And when I feel that door shut, it's going to rock me. And if it's going to rock me, I know it's going to rock everybody else hard. And the only counterpoint to that is differentiating, so that when you do feel that door shut, you can be in your authority and you can be ready to carry out life. And we're, those of us that were born before 2027, we're all still going to carry the cross planning frequency. So there is going to be that's there. There's still going to be an inherent, frequency that's conditioned us to to help each other and so on and so forth. But every child that's born after February 2027, that's not going to be in them. Nothing but individuality is going to be in them, no matter what their imprinting is. And that's going to be interesting and difficult for a lot of people. I mean, you think about it, there's a kid that's born into the world that just isn't concerned with something that happens to somebody else, that's just natural for them, because we're looking at sixth color, we're looking at innocence, and innocence isn't about being innocent. If anything, innocence is the least innocent motivation. Innocence is something happens right next to you that you could stop and you just don't, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't have anything to do with you. So we're also going into a time, where the background frequency is sixth color, and it's anything but innocent. Right. So it's and then we have our species giving birth to a new species, just like the seventh center being gave birth to us. And I also have that was part of my call too, was knowing that was going to come to fruition. And when it does, that there are things they're going to need to happen. And Raw talked about how there's going to need to be altruism for it to come to fruition. And I've openly said that I think that I'm probably going to participate in that in some way, shape, or form, because they're going to be rather helpless beings without it. And our species is going to react probably in a very adverse way, in the sense that we will be in a very selfish cycle of individuality, and there's going to be something that once three raves are together in a penta, is more strategic and powerful than anything that we can comprehend. Ross said that it terrified him. And when anything threatens humans, the way that we react is very primitive, right? The killer monkey is going to come out of a lot of the population, and ultimately, for as long as we exist, we're going to have to coexist with these beings that our species gives birth to, and so there's work that's going to need to be done, and the more people that are that it is their geometry, because there's no choice in this. I'm very aware, because why would I, me seeing the probability of what I'm going to have to deal with in securing and protecting these children that are not the same species. It's not pretty. It doesn't look very exciting, or well, it may be exciting, but not necessarily fun, and quite dangerous. So it's going to take more. It's going to take more more of us that have that geometry, and that's already set up. That's already determined. So it's not something that I'm concerned about, but it is something that I'm aware of, and that I'm aware of that I have to have a role in the education of that, and whatever role that I am here to play out in any sort of organization of it or implementation. So there's a lot that's coming, a lot that people are going to have to learn to navigate. And to learn to navigate it, you can look at a pure individual, like, wow, watch how we operate, watch how we live our lives, because we're outcasts for a reason. We operate very much alone for a reason, and in this time, it's to set an example. To set an example that you can do. I mean, of course, we always need each other, and that's why those of us that are in design, that are in the process of differentiating and transforming through the fractal line, are going to thrive through being in a network, through networking, with our fractal. But even with that, if somebody's used to having support or sharing in their life, and that is what they've relied on, they're going to have a really hard time, outside of a core family penta, outside of a core people, core 5 people. If you rely on anybody else anywhere, that's going away. That's going to go away. I mean, it's safe for me to say, through probability, that is going away. So you might have 4 people that you're going to be able to rely on, and even then, it might be begrudgingly. So the self, there's an amount of resolve that has to be there, that has to be developed, through the discipline of strategy and authority, for somebody to go into the next cycle and not feel deeply uncomfortable, and not have a considerable amount of time adjusting in order to thrive on the material plane. The material plane is one of my largest concerns for people, because it's just like, hey, you're not aware now. You're not in strategy and authority. You're not aware now, and me feeling what's coming, and me knowing, now living life as myself, and being, I had to decondition more than just learning to be a projector. I had to also learn to be a pure individual. I had to learn to live that out. That's his own deconditioning process, and it's very difficult. And as I've lived that out, it becomes that 55.66 color becomes more and more apparent, and how selfish that is. And I mean, and how selfish that is. I mean, I'm talking to the point where I look at who I used to be, how I used to operate, and I would have, if you told me that I was going to be the way that I am now, I would have said, you're full of shit. That's not who I am. and it just becomes, it's more and more apparent. It's my north node, my north design node. It just becomes more apparent, more apparent. This is a selfish frequency, and it's not a selfish frequency out of maliciousness, but I can see it just in myself, where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to give that. This is like, yeah, no, I don't want to give that. I don't want to spend that on that person. No, yeah, no, I don't. Nope. Yeah, just presents for these people, there's nothing to explain about it, because it's innocence. That line has innocence, and the selfishness that is there. Oh, I don't think we have words to explain to people.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it feels in my system is like, I don't respect this person, so no. That's how it feels for me. It's like, if I respect your spirit, if your spirit is aligned with mine, and there is some communion that can happen here, I can be quite giving, I can share a lot. But if I don't respect you, no. And it's the same thing, and it's strong. It's really strong within me, and I can see it more and more too. The more that I'm myself, the more I'm like, nope, not nope. If it's a no, it's a no. And like, the mind can do what the mind does, but it's a no. Yeah. Well, I think we can keep talking for a long time, but I think this is a good time to stop. How do you feel? Do you feel good about it?
Yeah. Right now is good. Whenever enough is enough.
Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. for me, and I would like to just kind of have some chill time before I actually sleep, so I can wake up good tomorrow. But I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna have you on again if you'd like to come at some point, for sure.
I would. I want you to come on mine. Come on my podcast.
I would love to.
And we can. I mean, if you the heretical subjects, you want to come on my podcast, we'll talk about the heretical subjects that we thought that we potentially could have talked about today. If you want to,
Yeah.
I would love to have you on. You're brilliant. It's always, how I am with mental projectors, how much I have the respect for what you do and what your role is. Yeah, I would really like to have you on. And if it feels correct for you, I can just run it through your authority, of course. If it feels correct for you, you're going to get a $200 on RAM for your time and your energy. And yeah, we'll talk about whatever comes up. But I would really like to talk to you about heretical themes and what it is to be a second line with that harmony, and what it is to experience it as somebody who is not Western, as somebody who is not white, because neither of us are Western. I mean, I'm half Western, but neither of us are white.
I'm not.
Exactly. It's just like it's very different. So yeah, but yeah, run that through authority. That's there for you whenever.
For sure. I loved it so much, and I will see you around for sure. I'm always looking at your stuff, always waiting patiently for the emotional projector to give us some heresy, to give us some tea, to empower me a little.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of it for a while, because the dragon is awake and I'm going to war, so you're gonna see quite a bit of it now. Quite a bit of it now.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brayton.
Get some rest. Have a good rest of your night. I'll talk to you soon.